The supersuit era of swimming is one of the most infamous in the sport's history, with world records being decimated left and right and records being pushed down to territory that many thought would be completely unattainable without those suits. After the suits were banned in 2010, the world records would begin to fall, slowly at first, but over time and with the help of many talented swimmers, the vast majority of the records have been struck from the record books. After the 2024 Short Course World Championships, the final short course supersuited world records have been broken. Now all that's left are the long course records, just 8 supersuited world records. So what are the remaining 8 records from this era, and which currently active swimmers have the best chances of breaking those records? But first, in case you're unfamiliar with the term, what are supersuits and why are they so notable? The supersuits were the suits that were worn in 2008 and 2009, and it started in 2008 with the Speedo Laser Racer. This suit was covered in strategically placed panels of polyurethane, and it would go on to dominate at the Beijing Olympics. In 2009, other suit manufacturers would release their counters to the Laser Racer. Lacking the time to do the extensive R&D required to determine the optimal placing of those polyurethane panels, they instead just made the entire suits out of polyurethane, which didn't work quite as well as the laser, it worked even better. This all culminated at the 2009 World Championships, where a whopping 43 world records were broken, the most at a single meet ever. The polyurethane was the real difference maker in the supersuits. While they were full body suits, which is also no longer allowed today, this was the trend for the 2000s as a whole. But when people refer to supersuits, they aren't talking about suits from 2007. Polyurethane as a material is somewhat buoyant on its own, but more importantly, isn't water permeable. This serves to trap a layer of air between the suit and the swimmer, adding even more buoyancy. This increased buoyancy is important, as it makes it much easier to sit on top of the water as you swim, which is the optimal body position for fast swimming. Starting in 2010, the rules surrounding suit design were revamped. There were restrictions placed on what materials could be used, which disallowed any non-textile materials. There were also restrictions placed on the lengths, limiting them to what you see today. However, all of the records that were set in these suits would be allowed to stand, and in 2008 and 2009, the only event that was untouched by the supersuits was the 1500 free, both short course and long course for the men, and just long course for the women. Every single other record in both formats was now a supersuited world record. At first, these world records seemed completely unattainable. There were no world records set in the calendar year of 2010, but eventually they would start falling and falling. Which brings us to today and the 8 that still remain standing. We'll start with the women's records first, or record, because there's only one left. The 200 butterfly. This world record of 201.81 by Liu Zhige has long been regarded as one of the most difficult world records to break, as for a long time it stood far above every other swim in history. I covered this world record in its own video a while ago. At the time, the fastest currently active swimmers were Zhang Yufei and Regan Smith, both over 2 seconds away from the world record standard. But the Paris Olympics saw a major development in this event, as Summer McIntosh won gold in a blistering 2:03.03, closing the gap between herself and this world record by a massive margin. Now, she does still have over a second to go to get that record, but she did manage to drop almost a full second between 2023 and 2024, not to mention the fact that she's only 18 years old. I think McIntosh has the potential to at least threaten this record if she keeps a strong trajectory, but no matter what, closing the gap on this record by such a large amount so quickly shows that this record isn't quite as invincible as it once seemed. And that's it for the women's records, so now on to the men's. In the men's 50 freestyle, there have been exactly 2 swims ever under 21 seconds, Fred Bousquet and Cesar Cielo, both in supersuits, with Cielo being slightly faster, owning the world record with a 20.91. Currently active in this event, there are 2 swimmers that have been faster than 21:10, the last 2 Olympic champions in this event, Cam McAvoy and Caleb Dressel. With best times of 21:04 and 21:06, these 2 have been incredibly quick in this event. But despite this, that 21-second barrier, as well as the world record, has proven to be incredibly difficult to overcome. McAvoy has the most momentum on his side, coming off of Olympic gold in this event, and with his personal best being from just 2023. McAvoy has also just pulled off a successful comeback to the sport, rebuilding himself as a 50 free specialist. The fact that McAvoy only relatively recently made the switch to pure 50 free specialist with a new training plan makes a strong argument for his ability to drop even more time in the future as he fine-tunes his approach. Before his career resurgence, his best time in the 50 free was a 21:55 from 2017. Then in 2023, he ripped a 21:27, followed by his 21:06. But what about Dressel? His best time of 21:04 was first achieved in 2019 before he tied it in 2021. Is he still a factor? Well, potentially. It's well documented at this point that Dressel had some struggles and significant time out of the water in 2022 and 2023. This most likely led to him not being quite at his full potential for 2024. After Paris, Dressel had floated the idea of going all in for the 50 free in 2028, which would actually put him in a pretty similar boat to McAvoy, at least in terms of that hyper specialization. Whether or not this is something that will actually happen is something that no one knows for certain right now, but I think if we see both McAvoy and Dressel meet when they're in top form, then that could be an epic battle that brings out the absolute best in both of them. Paul Biedermann's world record of 142.00 in the 200 free is just absurd, no two ways about it. For a very long time, this world record was absolutely, completely, and entirely unattainable. Not even the most delusional of swim fans would dream of someone breaking this world record. At one point in time, no swimmers even went under 144 for a decade straight, with 144 highs winning gold medals at major international meets. Then, one potential hope for breaking this world record emerged: David Popovich. Popovich broke the decade-long drought of 143s in 2022 at Worlds, where he went a 143.21 to win gold in the event. That was already a mind-blowingly fast swim, but somehow he got even faster later on in the year at the European Championships. At this meet, he would break 143, blasting a 142.97 and becoming the third fastest swimmer in history. Just like Summer McIntosh in the 200 fly, David Popovich has a ways to go to get down to that world record standard, but also like McIntosh, he made that world record seem a lot more vulnerable than it previously was. Popovich was a little off his best in 2023, but he seems right back on track after a down year. In late June of 2024, he went a 143.13 and then backed that swim up with an Olympic gold. If David Popovich can take that momentum and use it to start swimming fast again, then who knows just how fast he can end up. Next up, we have another Biedermann record, this time in the 400 freestyle. Biedermann's world record of 340.07 in 2009 undercut the legendary Ian Thorpe's world record of 340.08 set in 2002 by just 1/100th of a second. Unlike the 200 free, where it's basically Popovich and then everyone else in terms of even being close to that record, the 400 free has a few potential challengers. After 2009, for a very long time, no one other than Soon Young in 2012 was able to break 341, until 2023 and 2024, where several swimmers ended that trend. At the 2023 World Championships, Sam Short and Ahmed Hafnaoui had an epic battle in this event, with both swimmers breaking 341. Then in April of 24, Lucas Martins would rip a 340.33. Suddenly, we had a challenger just over a quarter of a second away from that world record. Martins would then go on to win Olympic gold in that event. Now, unfortunately, Hafnaoui has been missing in action for some time and is currently serving a provisional anti-doping suspension stemming from multiple whereabouts failures, so his future in this event is a little bit uncertain. But both Short and Martins are still active and have the potential to push each other into world record territory the next time they go head-to-head, not to mention other potential challengers like Elijah Winnington or Kim Woo-min, who are fast rising in the event. And we're back to another absurd record in the men's 800 freestyle. Zhang Lin's world record of 7:32.12 from the 2009 World Championships is over 3 seconds faster than the next fastest swim, Osma Luli, also from 2009. By the time we get to the fastest textile swims, that gap is widened to 5 seconds and beyond. Our top currently active swimmers in this event are Sam Short, Daniel Whiffen, and Bobby Fink, and the question as to whether or not any of them are likely candidates to break this world record comes down to whether or not any of them have any more big time drops in them. And while nothing is impossible, I'm not so sure. Whiffen and Fink have been improving since their respective breakouts to the top of the world, but that improvement has has been very incremental, which throws doubt on such a huge time drop that would be required. Short had his major breakout in 2023, but then an off year in 2024, and since we have less data to go off of for him, that means he could surprise us by more improvement at a higher rate. Otherwise, I think this event might be one where we need to turn towards the youth and keep an eye on the rising talent to find someone who can really start threatening this record in the future. Aaron Pearsall's world record in the 200 backstroke is another swim that stands head and shoulders above the other top performances in history. His record stands at a 151.92, the only swimmer under 152. In fact, only 2 other swimmers have even broken 153, with only Ryan Lochte doing it in a textile suit. Compared to that world record, this event has been pretty soft for a number of years. The last time a swimmer even broke 154 was in 2021 when Evgeny Rylov swam a 153.23. It kind of reminds me of the 200 freestyle, where for a very long time the top times in the world every year were far slower than Biedermann's world record. Ryan Murphy does have a personal best of 153.57, but that was back in 2018. He's been hovering around 154.1 every year since then. A sliver of hope does emerge when looking at 2024 Olympic champion Hubert Koch. Koch has had some massive improvements after being coached by Bob Bowman. Prior to joining Bowman, his best time in this event was a 157.64, but just 1 year later in 2023, he won a world title in a massive 154.14. He backed that up with a 154.26 to win Olympic gold in 2024 as well. Now, despite Koch not improving in 2024, I don't think that should eliminate the possibility of even more time drops. A lot of swims in Paris were slower for a multitude of reasons. Plus, Koch has moved to the University of Texas to follow Bowman, where he is now the head coach, and that change of scenery could be the catalyst for another big drop. But right now, he does still have a long way to go until he's even in the neighborhood of 151. But lacking any rising star in this event anytime soon, he seems to be our best shot of anyone even approaching that record. That's actually it for the individual world records, but the men do still have 2 relay world records on the books, the 800 free relay from 2009 and the iconic 400 free relay from 2008. Both of these records are in pretty similar spot, under serious threat, but still hanging in there. The 800 free relay has been the closest call on this entire list. In 2021, the incredible relay team of Tom Dean, James Guy, Matt Richards, and Duncan Scott were just 300ths away from that world record. This team wasn't a one and done either. They were under 7 minutes again at the 2023 World Championships and the Paris Olympics, where they repeated as Olympic champions. While the Brits have owned this event, the Americans have been building a pretty solid team over the last couple of years, nearing the 7-minute barrier themselves. If the Americans can nail their relay lineup and go up against a fully loaded British team, I think one of those teams gets the world record in the near future. When it comes to the 400 free relay, it feels like a record that the Americans should have been able to put together for some time now, but so far it's been able to withstand every attempt. The Americans, more often than not, are very deep in the 100 free. Their gold medal winning relay in Paris of Jack Alexey, Chris Giuliano, Hunter Armstrong, and Caleb Dressel looked primed to break this record after an insanely fast Olympic trials. While potential victims of that, the same could also be said for Team GB in the 800 free relay. Honestly, out of the 8 remaining superseded world records, I would say that the relay records are at the very top of my list in terms of most likely to be broken. And that is every single remaining superseded world record, as well as the currently active swimmers that I think have the best chance of breaking them. Are any of these predictions that these records will be broken anytime soon? No. I think that there are 3 categories as to how likely each of these records are to be broken in the near future, let's say during the next Olympic cycle. I already said the men's relays are the ones that I would say are pretty likely. The next category is events with potential. These events have 1 or more swimmers that are either close to the world record or have a lot of potential to drop a lot of time. This would be the men's 50, 200, and 400 freestyles, as well as the women's 200 fly. And finally are the events that I would be stunned to see broken anytime soon. That would be the men's 200 back and the 800 free. I mentioned some potential candidates in those events, but that would be reliant on a huge time drop that is really hard to come by at this level. I think more likely than not, these world records will be broken by a young up-and-comer that hasn't made any huge waves quite yet. There was a point in time where it seemed like the majority of superseded world records would never be broken, but over time, incredible athletes have overcome that monumental barrier and forever stamped their names into swimming history. With 8 of these world records left, it's just a matter of time to see which athletes make that move next. What do you think about the swimmers I think are most likely to break a supersuited world record? Is there a swimmer that you really believe will break one of these world records that I didn't mention, or do you think that some of these records are just so fast that the only swimmers that will break them are still age groupers right now? Let me know down below.